Hello everyone, my name is Andrew. Today we'll continue learning Python, and today we'll talk about dependencies and how to avoid those. So let's start. Again, today we'll talk about dependencies and how to avoid using them in our code. First of all, I want to say that you'll never avoid dependencies in any project, because until you write something in assembler, and I don't even know if assembler has libraries, like how, no, assembler does not have libraries. That's 100% true. But until you write something in assembler, you need to use libraries. So you need to use modules from other people, from other teams, and because of that, you cannot avoid dependencies completely. However, what you can do is try to avoid them in your code. And why do we need to do that? Let me just give you a simple example. So I need to get my keyboard, and let me first of all import a library. For example, a library for we have Telebot library right here. So if you don't know about Telegram, yeah, a lot of people don't know about it, but it's a messenger that allows you to write awesome bots, like the best API if you're writing bots. So any bots that will talk to other users, so you know what I mean, like the bots in Instagram, WhatsApp, and so on. Then you need to use Telegram, because you don't need to use it, but if the API of Telegram is the most advanced one, and because of that, what we do here is we import Telebot library, which allows us to write those bots for the Telegram. I'll explain the code quickly, and you don't need to know it, you don't need to search for Telebot library. It's just an example, like the easiest one that I can give you. So here we create our bot, and we provide a token, for example ABC. Token is like a unique identifier of our bot. It's like a password for our bot. We create it, and after that what we can do is, of course, use message handler. So on bot, so when bot receives a message, what we can do is, for example, on message, we accept message argument as the function parameter, and then we, for example, print that, oh no, let's not print, but bot send message to chat123 and message.text. The most simple example is that. So what we have right here? First of all, we have Telebot. The Telebot library is again a library that we'll use in order to work with Telegram. After that, we have our bot, so we create our bot. Yeah, that's just obvious. And we provide a unique password, so unique token to that bot. Then, when our message, when we have some messages, when the messages come to our bot, so our user writes something to our bot directly or in a group, so it doesn't matter. Let's just avoid other examples. And when our user writes to our bot directly, what we have? We call onMessage function, and we accept message argument, so the message that our user sent to us. And after that, we use bot.sendMessage to chat123, so it's like where we need to send message, and we use message.text as the contents of our new message. So our bot will just simply resend messages that our users write to him to chat123. A simple example, but it doesn't matter. So that code does not matter, and I just explained it so you understand what I mean when I talk about dependencies. Okay, but what is the biggest problem right here? Actually, the biggest problem and the most interesting problem that a lot of people don't think about is dependencies. So in our case, we have only one dependency, Telebot. But there is a problem with that dependency. We cannot just simply remove it. So imagine that you had a Telegram bot. And of course, a lot of people don't know about Telegram, so it's not as popular as Instagram, for example. And because of that, our company, our team, or just you decided to change your bot from Telegram to Instagram. What you need to do now? Of course, what you need to do is rewrite the dependency. So for example, Instagram bot, I don't know libraries for bots for Instagram, but Instagram bot, and there is a problem. As you can see, you cannot use Telebot, you cannot use message handlers, because those functions are unique for our Telebot library. And when I only use one dependency, I actually, that dependency grows to an enormous amount of code. So if we have only one dependency, that's still a dependency, and we need to avoid it and to remove it. But how to do that? That's the most interesting part. How we can do that? First of all, we can create a separate file, because if we store all of our dependencies in one file, it's not cool at all. So we can create a separate file. For simple projects, we can create a separate module, a separate directory, and so on. I often create separate directories for every part of my system because that way it's easier for you to split your program in different layers. And that's just much better. And I'll explain why in a minute. So now we have main.py and services.py. And what's the best idea about switching one platform, so one dependency to another? Typically, when you do that, your logic does not change. And if it changes a little bit. So what do I mean by that? Imagine again the situation. We need to change our bot from Telegram to Instagram. Will the logic of our bot change? I'm not talking about the code. I'm talking only about the end user logic. So our bot, in our case, receives a message and sends it to user 1 to 3. The logic of our bot in Instagram will be the same. So what does that mean? That means that if we avoid all of the code, so if we don't think about the code, what we can do is simply get all of the logic from Telegram and put it to Instagram. So the logic, so a user writes to our bot and that bot forwards the message to another user. So to user 1 to 3 in our case. So yeah, that's 1 to 3 is an ID of the user. So the logic stays the same. And what does that mean? That means that if we avoid all of the dependencies and then only put the logic as our main code, but all the dependencies will be in a separate file or module. In our case, it will be services.py. Then what we can do is simply change all of the dependencies inside of our modules and files where those dependencies are stored, and we can avoid using or touching any part of our logic. So what do I mean by that? Even if you don't see or understand what I mean, what we can do is simply copy that, go to services.py and put it right there. Of course, then I'll copy that, I'll put it here also, but what do I need to do here? What I can do is, instead of using message handler directly, what I can do is define message handler. So message handler, as you can see, is a decorator, but you don't, well, actually you need to know about decorators, but it's like a function that changes another function. So in our case, handler wrapper. I'll do it like that. Then I'll return function, just a simple function. It doesn't matter what it does right now, but I'll just show you what can we do. So first of all, what we can do is use message handler and write our own message handler. For example, that will be used like I don't know, function equals bot message handler from function, and then we can return our function like that. So as you can see, what we do here, we apply our message handler to our function, and after that, our function is returned. And instead of using bot.messagehandler, so that is a unique function of Telebot library, I can use message handler of my services module. So from services is import message handler. Of course, I need to put some values. I need to think about those, but I'm talking about like unique values for unique libraries. So for example, in message handler we have commands, commands, regexp, function, content types, chat types, and so on and so on and so on. But you can think about those, but what's the main point that I'm talking about is that you need to split, or you need to make your own local function that will wrap around other functions and maybe add some logic. So why do you need to do that? Now imagine, and of course let me do the same with send message. So I can do it like that, send message, and just simply use both send message, and we need to where to send the message and the message itself, so message, like that. So we send, as you can see here in services.py, we directly use the functions of our Telebot library. But if you look at main.py, we don't see Telebot at all. So what does that mean? That means that we successfully removed the dependency. Of course, we still have it, and you cannot remove that, because like if you remove that, then you need to use another dependency in order to work with the HTTP request, because Telebot or Telegram API and Instagram API, all of the APIs nowadays work with HTTP, and because of that, what we can do is put dependencies in separate files, separate folders, separate modules. So what does that give us? What does that give us? We can use our local functions, and if we will ever need to change the dependencies, so for example, there are a lot of libraries for Telegram bots, as well as for WhatsApp bots, Instagram bots, Facebook bots, and so on. So what we can do is simply change the dependency here. For example, I will use Instagram bot. I don't know whether that is just like an example. Instagram bot. Then we'll have not message handler, but on message here. And then we have forward message. So as you can see, what I did here is I changed the names of my functions and maybe the parameters of my functions. So on message we will have like, I don't know, Insta token, something like that, 1 to 3, 1 to 3. But it doesn't matter for my project, so I don't suffer because of those dependencies. Why? Because the only things that I need to change are those. So the only thing that I need to change is services.py. And as you can see here, I do not need to change anything because, again, the logic stays the same, but all the libraries are separate. So they are separated into different files, modules, and so on. But also there are problems with that approach. So what are the issues that we might face in the future? So first of all, if your logic changes drastically, for example, when we're talking about databases, you must to put all of your database logic, all of your database queries into separate classes, functions, files, and so on. So because of that, there is an interesting idea, is that if your database changes drastically, for example, you go from MongoDB to SQL, then your schema, so schema is how you store your data, changes drastically as well, because there are different approaches for different databases, there are different approaches for different data types, and so on. So if your system changes very drastically, then of course you need to change your logic and you need to change it here as well. So what if, for example, so here is I am talking about like the files where you don't have any dependencies. So the files when you really import all of your other things like that. And of course you may have dependencies in those, but those dependencies need to be like project wise. So for example, if you're working with Django, then of course you can import Django modules, Django classes, Django functions in here, because if you would ever need to change your project from Django to Flask, then of course what you can do is if you split all of your SQL queries, all of your modules, models, modules, all of the things that you can reuse in the future, and you put all of those things in different files and modules. And of course, if you ever need to change from Django to Flask, what you can do is just Ctrl-A, Ctrl-C, and Ctrl-V to some other place. But typically, if you change like your framework, your main, like your root, so root dependency, if we can call it like that, if you change it, then we of course need to change the whole project, and there is no cure for that. However, if we have like very small libraries, or if we have some logic that we can split into different files, then you probably need to do that. And also I explain it in my course, so you can find the link in the description. My course is all about that, how to write a great code. And it also talks about those kinds of things, so how to split data into different layers. So yeah, if you want, you can check it out in the description. But what I'm saying is that what you can do is use Instagram bot, or not Instagram bot, sorry. What you can do is split all of your dependencies into different files, and that way you will not need to change your code completely. So that's what I mean. And yeah, but again, if the behavior of your program changes drastically, or the schema or the data or anything changes drastically, then of course you need to make changes in both files. But also there is another, there is still an advantage for you if you do it like that, because your code is cleaner, like a lot cleaner if you split all of the things into different files. However, you can be very clean with your code. So what I mean by very clean is when you have like 10 files or 10 classes, 10 functions in order to simply, send a message to the user. So maybe that's a good idea, but it depends. You don't need to create a lot of functions and a lot of modules, a lot of classes in order to achieve a simple task. But if the task is very, very complex, or if the task is very, very abstract, then of course you need to create a lots of classes, lots of different things. Yeah, so that's how it works. That was my video about dependencies. I don't know what can I say in addition to that, but yeah, dependencies are very, very bad. in terms of when we need to change them and when we will need to work with them in the future. Because, for example, when we're talking about Telebot library is already a little bit deprecated. Like a lot of people don't advise using it. Still, a lot of people use it, and it's a great library that has some support from the authors. But still, a lot of people don't advise you to use it. And because of that, what we are having what we are having with our dependencies. So what's another problem is that libraries can change drastically, and all your dependencies can change drastically and in lots of ways. So yeah, if you have your dependencies, then try to split them into different files, because it will be better for your structure, for your code, and for yourself in the future. So yeah, that's what I wanted to tell you. Maybe you heard like a little buzz. That's my phone, sorry. But yeah, that's what I wanted to tell you. My name is Andrew. Thank you for watching and good luck.